Don't wait till the battle's over. Don't wait till the struggle ends. Shout now, shout now, right now. Shout now, shout now. Don't wait till you make it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PHILLIP Show. I am Philip, and I'm so glad you're here today. So before we get started, let's get our coffee. And again, I'm featuring this mug. I can't get enough. Hold on. So this mug is from our friends at Miami Valley Pottery, and I just love it. It's just the business. Normally, I tell you what I'm drinking, but today I'm telling you what I'm drinking out of. All right, so a lot of us are artistic. A lot of us are creative. A lot of us, coming out of the pandemic, we found creativity that we may not even have known that we had. A lot of people have started businesses. Some people have podcasts. A lot of people are doing so many different things in the creative world, but there are some people who have been doing creative things and being in the creative vein and genre for a very long time. You know, so we're going to be talking about how do we harness and why are we so creative? You know, a lot of times there are different stories that we have in our past, and through our creativity, sometimes those journeys come out and we share them with people. If you're a songwriter, a lot of the lyrics, you'll know some of the lyrics that you write are from personal experience. If you're an actor, some of the plays that actor and a writer, some of the plays that you may write or participate in may come from personal experience. So we're diving into what does it mean to be creative? What does it mean to actually be in the arts? And how do we influence people through our art? And today we have an amazing, amazing guest. Her name is Felicia Chappelle. And Felicia is a passionate actor and writer and an all-around creative who received her training as a touring lead actress at Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. We're in Yellow Springs, so that's a big shout out. Plug. And she returned to the stage in support of her palpable thirst for art and established her powerful one-woman act entitled Interrupted Motherhood. So now she hosts a podcast entitled Faces on the Train. Felicia voices original 10-minute flash fiction stories that take the mind on a refreshing psychological journey. These narratives of emotional insight are designed to encourage empathy as we navigate the many personalities that cross our paths every single day. So join me in welcoming the talented Miss Felicia Chappelle.
Hey, it's so great to be on the PHILLIP Show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. How are you doing?
Today, thanks for the check-in. Let me look. I think I'm good. Had a fantastic week. It's been a really active summer now that I'm moving around a little more. Okay. I'm sure we're all feeling that. And so, I'm feeling pretty refreshed.
Yeah, this getting up and moving around, I think I got so interested in my couch.
I know.
And now that there's all these things to do, it's like, wow. And now I'm busy because everybody wants to do everything. Now they're like making up for lost time. So there's all of these festivals. There's all of these events that people are trying to either plan, schedule, whatnot. So, okay. So you're super creative. How, and we're going to get to your projects, but I want to kind of get the backstory. How did you learn that the arts was a passion of yours?
That was a really interesting process, and I'm glad you asked because at first I considered myself purely a support person. All of my interest was in backstage support or, just whatever I was doing was all behind the scenes as strictly a support structure for artists. Even when I started out in the theater years ago, my primary concern was everything underground. I'd like to hang out with the lighting cables. I like to be a part of the crew. And then I discovered that I actually had a stage presence and a stage talent. Oh. And once that was discovered, I didn't have a lot of options because the directing team at that time was like, you don't belong behind the stage, you belong on the stage. So the shyness came off, the layers came off, the veils came off. And I was like, wow, I really do prefer to deliver from the stage. So that's kind of how that started. I was always a writer though.
Oh, you're always a writer. Okay, so that's like completely background normally. If somebody's a writer, they have the vision and they kind of have the emotion and they try and, get it out. So
Yeah.
when you said that you learned that you were somebody that could be in front of the camera, did somebody else discover that for you, or did you find yourself having a passion to do it, or somebody say, hey, you need to be over here?
Well, when I realized that I was going to be good on the camera and that I was going to be good on the stage and that I was going to be good delivering content, it was a slow process. I got a part, I got a big part, and someone actually cultivated my participation on the stage. It started out as an acting class that you had to kind of take as, a thespian and as a theater arts major. So when I had to get on the stage, that was the part I didn't like. That was the part I was uncomfortable with. But once I landed that big role, I was pushed into cultivating that. It's like, no, the presence is too strong. You're not, we can feel you backstage when you're just supposed to be bringing props on and changing sets. You need to, get in the light. So I got in the light and kind of exposed myself by delivering it. I was like, oh, that does feel right.
Wow. So somebody recognized the it factor in you.
Yeah, somebody definitely recognized the it factor, and I'm very lucky to have those somebodies. My somebody right now is my creative partner, Will Walker, and he is phenomenal at saying, this is what it is, and this is what we need you to do with it. And so having that partnership and having that original partnership from, I don't know, when I first started in theater at Antioch, has been a really driving force, and having other people saying, no, I'm seeing something here. Right now, Walker is my seeing something person, and he's my 100%. And the team that we put together and the team that he brought on to support me as a talent has been really, really a great exposure to how things all work together to make something really exciting and make something really vibrant come out. Yeah.
Wow. Is it different being going from just being the writer and kind of being backstage to being the focus and the kind of the driving force or the voice of the production?
It's very different. I have my kind of creative mind never slows down. So I have to remember, take that hat off and put that hat on. And so when I'm a writer, like you said about writers, the observation element is in play all the time. So there's that creative observation, and everything always becomes a narrative and a story. I can't just observe something and let it pass. So those gears are always ticking. Being on stage is really about surrender. It's about allowing emotional things to happen. It's about being in vulnerable spaces, which I'm not very talented at. Off stage, I have to really pull myself back to intimate relationship. I have to pull myself back to seeing where someone is and being sure that I'm being reciprocal in the communication process. I have to pull myself back just because I like to take flight. Trauma and everything else, always just sends me right out of my body. I'm just like, do I have to be here for this? But being a writer helps with the focus, and being an actress allows me to, like when I'm an actor and when I have that hat on and I am in my body and I'm doing the emotional content, it's a real pull. It's really therapeutic. It's really cathartic. And I really have to focus, stay in your feelings. And so I think that's what I like about it, the chance to be vulnerable.
And that's a hard thing for, number one, people to do. But I would imagine as an actor, that is even more difficult because sometimes you have to pull on your personal journey to get the feelings for a particular character, unless you wrote the part. So how is it mentally or psychologically to have to stay in a place that may have or may need to express more emotion than you have naturally?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I use art kind of to work out my psychological content. Like I use it to work out my feelings and my craziness. I use art to work that out. So just having to be, so if I have a character that's really complex or really emotionally traumatized or really devastated or really excited, and that's not how I'm feeling, that's what acting is. Acting is, this is the narrative and this is the story. And I, Felicia, don't get to be here for this. Whatever the character's name is, whatever the character's experience is, that's who I am. And that's where she is. She's stuck in that moment of time that's defined by the screenwriter or defined by the playwright. And that's her time. So whenever I'm visiting her as the character, whatever character I'm visiting, I have to visit that character and be in that time and space to tell that narrative, so that whoever's struggling with that moment, or whoever's living in that life, or whoever needs to hear that story, whoever needs the refresh, whoever needs the joy, whoever needs the healing, whatever it is that piece of art, screen, film, television, play, stage, whatever that piece of art needs to deliver, I don't get to be myself. I have to leave myself out of it, all the way out of it. But I do have to pull on personal experience. So it is quite a mental gymnastics type of experience, type of responsibility to move in and out. Felicia is gone. The character is here. This character's crying. This character's laughing. And I have to be whoever she is, or he, if I end up playing a male character. Whoever that person is, that's who I have to be. I don't get to be me. So.
Got you. So you started backstage and you went center stage, and you developed your one woman act, Interrupted Motherhood. How was that to come from back to front, and now, I guess vulnerable would be a good word, because now it's just you.
Yeah, it is just me. I find that I've been given like a God-given talent of being able to carry a stage. Okay. So when yay, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, so grateful. So just having that power of being able to carry a stage and to take an audience and to just say, okay, this is my toy. And that's the character. And to take the audience and say, do you want to play with my toy? I have that ability to do that. So that agility is not easily won. Sure. That's something that requires a lot of, what is it exactly? I would say that it requires a lot of concentration, and it requires a lot of trust, and it requires a lot of compassion, because they've already decided they want to be there. So I have to take them someplace that they enjoy hanging out.
So how did you, with all of those components that are in the kind of in the mix to be successful for kind of like a one person situation, how did you know that you wanted to do it just as one person?
Well, that's an interesting story too. I had taken a hiatus. I've tried to run from art for decades, not multiple decades, but at least a good 2 of them. I have tried to be like, that was fun. That was. And I really didn't anticipate that I would be dry as a desert until I allowed that process back into my space, into my heart, and let that passion come out. So I spent a lot of time suppressing, my true self by wanting to disengage from art. I didn't really think that I would have to connect in that way. And to answer your question, I guess when I knew was that I could do the one woman show, is that was the narrative that came out. Those were the feelings that I was doing cathartically. And I was with a group, it's in Dayton, the Kitchen Theater group. And they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm writing, and it feels really great. And we all sit around and share. Most of these are our older folks who have come back from New York, come back from Hollywood, come back from already having had their exposure and experience to the industry. And we sit around and we share each other's work. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm writing. And they're like, okay, read. And I was like, that wasn't part of my process. I was just saying I was getting the engine kind of wheels. The wheels were turning, the gears were oiled, and they were like, no, read. And I was like, now? And I'm not usually a pause type of person. I'm usually a go for it person. So it was really interesting to read it and then to shape it. And then Will Walker came in and was like, beginning, middle, and end, structure, structure, structure. So he reminded me, this is fantastic that you're in it and that you're back. Now, what's the structure going to be? What's the shape of it going to be? Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You can put the middle at the beginning. You can put the end at the beginning, whatever you want to do, flashback, whatnot. But it has to have all 3 of those things. And he cleaned it up, and he really rode me hard. So it always starts with me with a push. I've been reluctantly passionate forever. And so now I'm owning it and claiming it. And I'm opening to I'm opening into my power and being like, yeah, I can do this, and I want to do this, and this is where I am, and this is my destiny, and this is what is going to happen. So
wow, that's some great statements. Great. So how did you go from being, or maybe in conjunction with, but being this one woman show in front of people live, to being a podcast with Faces on the Train? How do you go from being super out there, I can control the stage, to I'll sit behind the microphone and tell you a story?
Yeah, I know. That's a great question, Philip, because that stretch was huge. That was a huge arch for me. The tour stopped in March. So the dates we had for March were canceled. February show was great. The build was great. And I love the energy of live stage, live theater, and having to be in it. And so when it stopped, as a creative, you also know there's no real life if we're not doing something or creating something. So that stopped, no matter if it's for actors, comedians, drummers, piano players, musicians, jazz folks, hip hop folks. Nobody in the arts world likes that stop. That is really hard for us to do. Other people can be like, oh, it's nice to slow down or a break from work, but we're an around the clock. Creatives are an around the clock type of folks. We have to remind ourselves, look, midnight is too late to be writing a play. We have to remind ourselves like 5 a.m. is too early to be, rehearsing, all that stuff. You can't wake up in the middle of the night and just like go to your piano. If you live alone, I guess you can, but the stop was hard. So when we took that hard stop on the tour schedule, it was rough. It was really, really rough. So I was writing. I always write to relieve myself. And a lot of it goes on the floor. A lot of it goes in the garbage. I keep it all. It doesn't actually go in the garbage, but a lot of it is just me needing to be in process. And so when I started with Faces on the Train, I was surprised at the intensity. I think it was the intensity of how the lockdown started and everything. I just started writing and I couldn't figure out what I was going to do. And I thought, is this a book? And I was like, books don't monetize easily. So I thought, well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time writing a book. That's great to be in practice. So I went into my closet and I was like, this is a great audio. So I'm in my closet. I've got all my stuff. I take the batteries out of all my clocks. I stuff towels under the door. I'm in my clothes in my walk-in and I kind of huddle into my clothing. And I set up a little station and I start audio recording. And I was like, wow. I was getting good sound and there was no traffic and so I had to start like before the birds and after the people I love. There was this window where that magic came to life and Faces on the Train was psychologically intense, emotionally intense. The characters were visiting with me and I was just cranking at that time and I was really, really flowing with it. And that's how I dealt with the mania of interrupted motherhood. Had to stay still because the tour was canceled and the venues were closed. And so Faces on the Train came out of a place of real kind of angst, like I needed to have a creative outlet.
So tell us about Faces on the Train. What is it about and what would you like the listeners to gain from it?
Faces on the Train are these brief interludes. It's a people watching piece of people you might run into on the street. Now, sometimes we run into people and we catch feelings. It's not unlike me to like accidentally cut somebody off. They think that I'm just a rugged cut people off type broad, and I'm going, shh, I didn't, my focus or whatever. Those interactive moments can change the course of a day. How many times have you caught feelings and started just, everything's tight off of, and when someone cuts me off, I go, I know I've been that person and I've learned to let it go. So Faces on the Train is about compassion. Faces on the Train are those chance interactions. You don't know their story that led them up to this minute. They don't know your story that led you up to this minute. There was a book I read one time about a guy who had gone into an ice cream shop and he wanted to get an ice cream. And there were 4 kids running around and a disheveled mom. And they were just running around and being noisy and being loud. And she was out of it and not checking them. And he got a real attitude about that. And she's trying to get their ice cream. And she goes, I'm sorry. We just came from the emergency room and we were in intensive care and their father has just died. And without that disclosure, he was like, why is this woman walking around not taking care of her kid in this gourmet ice cream shop? I didn't come over here for a $6 ice cream to have these kids running around. And that is just those flooring moments. And that's what Faces on the Train is about. So I thought re-entering from however long we have to sit still, because by this time we had been sitting still for a while, we're going to have to know a lot more about each other. And so compassion, it's about those moments that can go any way we choose when we acknowledge that there's something behind somebody stepping on your shoe or cutting you off or offending you publicly.
There's always more to a story than the perspective that we have and the purview of what we see.
Much more.
There's always more. When you started to gather these stories and then to introduce them to the world, did you have a certain type of listener or audience in mind?
It's interesting. The audience has kind of surprised me because young people have been rolling in and older people have been rolling in. I always think about old people in isolation and solitude. So there's an element where, and I was groomed in Yellow Springs to have like cross demographic, cross cultural, but also age inclusion was a huge part of that grooming. There were things you didn't do when you were under 21 and things you didn't do when you were under 18, but whatever it was, we were all going to be doing it together.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the demographic, it's really about people who are interested in that psychological wellness, people who are like, I need a lift. I need something to get me past this bump. I need a reminder. And so the therapeutic value of art is really who needs the therapy, who needs to remember the person you feel like cussing out right now also has something that they're dealing with.
Sure.
You know, bumping carts into bumping people in the grocery store, whatever it is, all these little chance interactions were looking like they were going to escalate perpetually with the way things were climbing towards the insurgent and all that stuff that happened over the course of the last 18 months. So I guess I was targeting that feeling. I was targeting that place where we have to just up the bar a little bit and be like, there's a reason this mom's kids are crying, or there's a reason why this guy didn't see me and cut me off, or there's a reason why I'm being kind of cranky to this cashier, or these kids who are working while grownups are receiving stimulus checks, God bless everybody, and they're getting, you know, cussed out by these other grownups, and they're like underage, pimply-faced teenagers working. It's like, we got to know each other better. We just got to.
Yeah.
So that was the target. So it was more about targeting that place that we can all do better at.
So with that being, with it being out now and people listening to it, where do you see it going? Is this something that you want to grow into something else, or is it just organically what it is until art says that's enough?
I just needed to get it out there and get it moving. And now that that audio piece is out there and moving, flash fiction drama, and they're quick. It's like 10 minutes and you've gone someplace. So that
I love that. Sidebar, I'm telling you, I love that because my attention span is super short.
Right.
And I get intimidated. I literally, now that I'm, you know, online all the time, if somebody sends me a video, I don't look at the title. I don't look at anything else. I look at the number of minutes the video is.
Right. Total runtime. How long am I in this?
I'm like, how long? How much of my life?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because there's a lot of great stuff out there and I can't do everybody's 1 hour. If somebody sends me something, I might, and it has to grab the audience, all that stuff. But I like these flash fiction pieces. I like this flash fiction audio drama because it's intense, it's grabbing, it gets you, it takes you, and there you are, and then you're gone. And so when they added it at the radio station, and when the numbers started coming back to analytics of it growing, I did notice that I always do work well with women, which is why I'm at Women Work Wonders. And that is a demographic that responds. And it's been positive in that way. But the future of the piece, I want to go visual with it because everybody says it's so visual. I knew it when I was going in. This is visual. But I didn't want to write a screenplay because I said, how are you going to be in a room with anybody to tape it? So I wrote the short stories, and then I read the short stories, and then we just build one piece at a time. And that's what I do with Will Walker, my partner. We build one piece at a time, and the audio hits so heavily, and people are like, wow, love this 10 minutes of my life. Love this 10 minutes in my commute, whatever it is, they like it. And come back with some really positive feedback on it, just in terms of how it resets their day, which is the whole point. That's why we love art, because it gives us a feeling that we weren't having before. We enjoyed it, you know.
Now, do you do any voiceover work?
I haven't yet moved into the voiceover. I'm really actually focused on building my brand. As you know, with the PHILLIP Show, because you've been so clear about building the brand that everybody's like, and I love the PHILLIP Show because you know, your excitement, your enthusiasm, your build, your purpose, all the stuff. It's like, oh, he is pouring something into this. So I do like the idea of voiceover because my voice is strong and I can switch it up, and I have all kinds of eclectics and characters and tones that I can pull from for voice work. But I'm not really looking for that right now. I really want to build my brand. So that's kind of what I'm going to do with Faces on the Train. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you find that as a creative that is unique to have a particular focus Because stereotypically, people always say that creatives are just really flighty. They don't really, they're not, they're very creative and they're artistic, but they just need to come down to earth sometimes. Do you find that that's a pretty interesting skill for you to have, to be so focused on like a lane that you're in and how you want to kind of maintain that?
Philip, you hit the nail on the head with that, because you said at the top of the show, you opened it up, you said, we're all creative. We've all found a new creative space. We've learned ourselves creatively. Been in the house for a long time. How many people have redecorated, moved the pillows around on the we know that we're creative, and then some of us are more creative than others. We can't let go of it. And you hit the nail on the head with that, because there is nothing like completion. And artists will get right up to the finish line and go, I think I'll write a book. Or I think I want to do this collaboration with this other really cool person. Or what if I drop some tracks for this music? Or I'm sure I have time at least to drop by this festival. And then all of a sudden and then I met somebody there, and then they're working on this, and it was such a great conversation, and you are out of your lane.
Yeah.
So I am always asking myself, am I in it or am I not in it? Am I doing it or am I not doing it? Am I on the mission or against the mission? Because there's only two ways that things are happening. I'm either in the mission or I am diverted and distracted from the mission. And Will Walker is former military. He's retired Navy. And aside from being a 30-year arts veteran, and a psychodrama therapist, it's been tremendously helpful to have him be like, back in your lane, put your hat back on. So it's like, no, we're not writing right now. We're not writing. So I'll be in the middle of delivering something, and I'll be like, what if this character, da-da-da-da? He's like, what?
Yeah.
What? Stop. Cut.
Yeah.
Restore. No. Go back to where you were. Cut.
Focus.
Focus. Action. But other than that, I'll really be in it, and I'll be like, wait a minute, I think she's actually, and then I'll have a whole nother narrative enter about a character. And that's what it's like to be a creative. The whole thing is delivering a completion. And it's the difference between a yes and a, oh, well, that person always had a lot of talent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really hard to do.
Yeah. As a creative person, I'm just going to say that I understand. As a business person, I'm like the kind of person that will make lists.
Okay.
As the creative person, I'm the person who looks at the list and says, well, let me get started on something. I'm going to go clean the kitchen.
Right.
Yeah. Or, there's a graphic that I've been working on, so almost, it's easy to use creativity as a procrastination method too. Yeah,
that's true. And sometimes if the stuff is too emotionally complex, I am guilty I have side projects, so that when it really just is too intense for me to be in it, I am still applying myself creatively, but I have this team. Walker's my partner, and that always brings me back, because without a completed product, there's nothing to market. Without a completed product, there's nothing to enjoy. There's no delivery. It has to be seen to completion. I don't have time to be like, oh, they have that learn how to bee harvest, learn how to honey harvest thing that's happening. It's only an hour, and it's right down over there. No.
Let me go.
No. It's like stay in not just the creative process, stay in the exact project. This is not an improv set that could last for multiple generations and just travel from jazz club to jazz club. Sit down and finish whatever it is.
Okay, don't yell at me. Fine, I will.
I'm yelling at me, man. I am yelling at myself, but I see how you do it with the PHILLIP Show. I'm like, oh, this guy's hitting my inbox. Oh, this is my Philip email. I almost forgot. Oh, let me put this on my calendar. Phillips every time, 7:30. Let me do this. So I see that you actually do have that. So we'll borrow from each other on that note.
Well, thank you. So tell us, okay, so Faces on the Train, where can we find it?
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, my website is womenworkwonders.com. That's womenworkwonders.com. And you can always link to any of my stuff through that. But I'm streaming on Spotify, I'm streaming on Anchor, Applecast, all the general streaming platforms are hosting Faces on the Train. And if you put Faces on the Train and my name, it'll pop up. And you'll see, I think I'm on like episode 26 or something.
Oh, wow.
Right now I'm on the West Coast with the characters that I really like frolicking about on the Pacific coastline.
Oh, wow. Well,
yeah.
that's a good picture.
Yeah.
Well, that is wonderful. That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your talents, your inspiration, and how you do what you do. Because a lot of people want to do something, but you shared the how, and I think that is so. I think that's so amazing and so generous of you. So it gives people just a little bit more perspective and more of a roadmap to say, okay, I'm creative, but let me see how these people are doing this.
Very important. The how is the everything.
The how. Thank you, Felicia, for coming.
Thanks for having me, Philip. I'm so grateful. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, wonderful. Everybody, that was Felicia Chappelle. She dropped some nuggets on us. She dropped some fun on us. She's creative and she's focused. Stay focused, even if you get distracted, but remember, there is a goal, there is a completion that we are trying to get to, and remain focused. Another takeaway is surround yourself with people not only that believe in you, but that will push you. Sometimes we have blind spots. Get somebody that has the permission to speak into those blind spots to help you get to where you want to go. I hope that you pulled something out of this. Go to the website and click on the link and listen to Faces on the Train. You will be absolutely blessed. Thank you to Felicia Chappelle again for being here. And remember, you are the best you in the world. We'll see you next time on The PHILLIP Show.
Don't